All right, hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Hope y'all doing great. Hope y'all doing amazing, because I know I am. All right, let's put this here. How's everybody doing? My name is Chad. I'm a motion designer, and I'm doing illustration every day just to prove to people that it ain't that hard. It ain't that hard. You just gotta do it every day. You just gotta do it every day. Maybe it gets a little bit too hard, but that hard, like it's not. It just goes off if you stick with it. Okay. Well, we're going. Okay, so I feel oily as fuck right now, bro. Did I just say the F word? Okay. All right. So we're not off to a great start. Okay. Let's see. All right, man. So what I was saying is we're going like the title of the stream says, we're going to take it back a few steps. Because I feel like I did not do a lot of things right from the start. Um, oh man, this heat, bro. This heat got me dying, bro. Oh, I'm doing these push-ups. That is not very convenient. Okay, so I was saying, I got the suggestions yesterday from our boy Joe. His work is impeccable. Like he's already like a professional. And yeah, we're trying to get to that level. Even if we didn't get to that level, the fact that that I can understand like space and three dimensionality, if that's the word. I feel like I can do a lot of that just in like motion, because that is my goal. Like I want to do motion, and when talking about motion, I'm not trying to talk about like actual 2D animation or cell animation. I'm talking about like motion in general, the type of motion that you do with After Effects or character animation. When it comes to character animation, I'm not talking about like anatomically correct, very detailed, body parts and everything like that. Just like simple, very abstracted. Could be very abstracted, or it could be like simple. Like I feel like once I understand that, I could do like from abstracted to simple to maybe detailed. The detailed needs more studying with anatomy and everything like that. So what I'm trying to get to is a level where I just understand space very well. I feel like I do, but I'm not there yet. And one of the hindrances I feel like is the fact that I cannot use my pen, or like the strokes I make are very non-confident and scared. So what we're going to do today is something different. We're going to work on our strokes. How to draw well on digital. Good digital, right? Stop doing linear art. Okay, we'll start with these two videos and we'll see. No, not HD. Nuh-uh. Move down.
This is an introduction.
We'll start with this one because it's shorter.
This is an introduction to digital art.
What part of digital art?
The drawing part. The part where you're sitting at your desk, you already have some hardware to draw on, and now you need inspiration to strike you. That part of digital art, but with less lightning and more sparkles.
Wait, I don't have a tablet or a screen thing or a pen.
Don't worry, I gotcha. This is a two-part series. This is the part where I talk about drawing, and the other part is on my other channel where I talk about the hardware and the software you need to get started. For this video, I'm going to be introducing you to the tools and the basic techniques, and talk about how artists work digitally. The cool thing about digital art is there is no right or wrong way to create it. What matters is how it looks in the end. Having a place to start can be really comforting. Let this video be your comfort food. Don't eat that. It's the dessert tray. That's just for show.
What?
I'll get you a fresh one from the back. Throughout this video, I'm going to be drawing on the iPad using an app called Procreate, but this is really important. You don't need this app or this iPad in order to do these lessons. You can follow along in any program that you like. So if you'd rather use Procreate on the iPad or Krita or Clip Studio or that old virus-ridden version of Photoshop you found on BitTorrent, that's fine, I guess. Are you going to be okay?
Oh, I've had worse.
There are some resources that we're going to be using here that will save you some time, and you can download those on my website for free, bradsartschool.com. There's some paid stuff there too. That's how this channel makes money. My new Intro to Digital Art course is packed with step-by-step projects that will get you up to speed fast. More on that at the end of the video. Stop selling, get a move on. All right, back to the art. If you are coming from traditional art or just starting out, there are two things that make digital art great: brushes and layers. There's a lot of other stuff too, but those two things in particular. Every drawing app has brushes. We call them brushes, but they can be any traditional art tool recreated digitally. This brush looks like a paintbrush when you draw with it. This one looks like a pencil. This one looks like chalk. And this one looks like it was made in a unicorn accident.
I didn't know unicorns were real.
So yeah, brushes can mimic real life tools or do things that can only be done in digital art. You can change the size of your brush, you can change the opacity or how much paint comes out of your brush, and when you draw with a stylus, you can change the way your brush looks based on how hard you press with your stylus. As I press harder with my stylus, more paint comes out. Those are the basics and all you need to know for now, but it gets way more complicated and you can do so much with these. A lot of programs let you create your own brushes, customize the ones they already have there, or import brushes that other people have already created.
What about layers?
Yes! If I was going to draw a comic, old school style, on paper, I might sketch out my scene first in pencil. Then I'm going to ink those pencils with the pen. When the ink dries, I erase those pencils. Then maybe I color in my comic with watercolor or gouache. Gouache is like a really thick watercolor. Not important right now. To do this digitally, I would use layers. Layer 1 would be my sketch. Maybe I'd create another layer for my inks, and then another one for my colors. Layers can be turned on and off, so when you're done with your pencil layer, you don't need to erase or delete it. You just toggle it off. If your pencil sketch got a little bit dark and you can't see your ink lines really well, no problem. Just turn down the opacity of that layer so you can see it better. You can duplicate your layer so you can experiment with your drawing without losing your originals. You can try different color combinations, toggle layers on and off to compare those colors. There is so much you can do with layers. This is just scratching the surface. With that out of the way, let's do a real project. I made some 3D renders here. We're going to paint these suckers. Well, one of the suckers.
This looks hard.
Nah, you got this. Just follow along. Even if it's not perfect, you're probably going to do better than you think. If you want to paint along, you can screen capture this image right now and paint along on your own canvas. I set up my canvas to be a standard paper size. Then I pasted in this image, moved it to the top, and maybe resized it a little bit as needed. That leaves the bottom area for my drawing. You can get this file for free over at bradsartschool.com if you don't want to do all the setup yourself. Even though many art programs come with hundreds of brushes, I tend to stick to only a few. There are 4 in particular I use a lot. A pencil brush for sketching, a clean ink brush that has some crisp edges and changes width based on how much pressure you apply with the stylus, and an airbrush with some nice faded edges. A hard round brush that changes opacity based on the amount of pressure. I'm going to be using 3 of those 4 brushes here. So let's start with our pencil brushes.
Got it.
Now we can use the skills we learned in earlier lessons from season 1 on perspective to figure out vanishing points and all that fun stuff, but for the purpose of this lesson, it's okay to go in and just trace the cube. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. There'll be plenty of time later to figure out how to draw it. I am going to make a new layer and sketch out that cube on its own layer. I just want to get the outline of the cube and maybe sketch in where I think the shadow is going to go. Now I can take my move tool and move this sketch down to the bottom half of my drawing. I can even adjust the opacity of that layer so it's easier to see through on the canvas. All right, we need a new layer now. This layer is going to be our cube. Another handy tool in your digital art backpack is the color picker tool. This lets me choose a color from anywhere on my canvas. I'm going to grab the color along the side of this cube first. Now I can use my hard-edged inking brush to make the outline of our square. Now the faster you draw a line, the smoother that line is going to be. That also means you might overshoot, but that's okay. You can always grab an eraser tool and take out the extra parts of the line you just drew. Once we get the outlines, we can fill this in with color. Art apps have a tool called the fill tool. Usually it looks like a paint bucket, but every app is a little bit different. With one click, you can fill an enclosed space with color.
Mine does not look good.
Some fill tools work better than others. There are settings that make this better, but for simplicity, you may have to go in with your stylus and paint in the gross edges. Let's go back to our reference and grab the color of a different side. This one. And then we're going to repeat those steps by drawing the outlines and filling that in as well. And you guessed it, we're going to do this one more time. For the top, draw in our outlines and then fill it on in. You're getting the hang of this. Next up, I want to paint the background. Let's put that on its own layer. Now that new layer that I just created, I want to make sure that is below my cube layer. Anything we paint on top is going to block out the cube. We won't be able to see it. That's why it has to be underneath.
I can't see the reference now.
If we want to fill in just part of the canvas, we can use a selection. That's another tool. Those tools usually look like little dotted line icons. I could do selections in squares, rectangles, circles, or even draw my own shape. For now, I'm going to stick to the square. I'm going to drag it across the area that I want to fill. Then I'm going to grab my fill tool and boom, just fill it with color.
It looks like the reference has a gradient on it.
It does. That's what the airbrush is for. In digital painting, there are hard edges and soft edges. The cube has nice, crisp, hard edges, but this gradient is a really soft edge. Different brushes are gonna help us get those different effects. So I'm gonna use the color picker to grab the dark part of my gradient along the top. Next, I wanna lay down paint where I've already painted. Now I can use the selection tool and select that again. That works perfectly well, but there's another setting I wanna talk about here called alpha lock. This is called different things in different apps. In Medibang, it's called protect alpha. Usually if you see the word alpha somewhere on your layers, you found the right thing. Now paint is only gonna go where we've already drawn something. Nice. Now I'm gonna make my airbrush super big, real big, and I'm gonna turn down the opacity a little bit, maybe to about 50%. Then with my stylus, I'm just gonna lightly go over the top and I'm gonna scrub back and forth and slowly fill in that gradient. The less opacity I use and the slower I go, the more organic it's gonna look.
This isn't looking right.
Yeah, what this really needs to come alive is a shadow. To do that, I wanna make another layer. Now let's take a look at the reference though. See in our shadow, it's got this super dark edge right along the bottom of the block. And then over here on the left-hand side, it's got this gradual shadow just kind of going out. Let's do the dark shadow first by grabbing the color from our reference. And then I'm gonna take my airbrush and I'm gonna make it much, much, much smaller. And with that, I can just go in and paint in underneath my cube. If your paint appears above your cube, just move the layer underneath it and you should be good to go. Now I wanna do the shadow on the left. Let's create another layer for that. You could do it on the same layer, but this way if we mess up, we only have to redo one part of it. Because this is probably the trickiest part of the whole thing. I'm gonna make my airbrush bigger and I'm gonna turn the opacity down to like somewhere between 10 to 20%. And I'm just gonna come in here and lay down strokes over and over and over again. It's the gradual addition of paint that's gonna make it look smooth and organic. If yours gets that layered effect, you can always delete this layer and try again. Or if you wanna earn some bonus points, you can see where your drawing app's blur tool is. Blurring the shadow is really gonna help it look more organic. There are other details here worth noticing. For example, the sides of my cubes aren't perfectly flat colors like I have them painted here. Sometimes there's a little bit of a bounce shadow going on down along the bottom. I can always alpha lock my cube, grab that slightly darker color, and go over a few times with the airbrush. If you're using some of the other references on my site, you're gonna see a lot of details like that. On the rounded cubes, you're gonna have some soft edges instead of hard edges on that cube, so you're gonna have to use the airbrush a lot more. There's also some little things like little reflective highlights you're gonna have to pay attention to. Now, several of those references were included for free, but if you want the big batch with some really super complicated ones to practice with, that's all part of my Introduction to Digital Art course. What if you just want to learn drawing next? Check out season 1 of Brad's Art School right here on this very YouTube channel where we cover all of the basics of drawing. All right, you can talk about your course now. It's mostly project focused, so each lesson is a project and you follow.
Okay. I think seeing the way like he was moving his hand, sometimes he was like, well, most of the time he was using the whole arm, but sometimes like when trying to draw the shadow, he was like using the wrist.
Hello, hi, I'm Mark, an art teacher and professional artist, and this week's video is going to be for you if you've ever wanted to become a digital artist, because this is my beginner's guide to digital art! Yes, if you've ever wondered which tablet to get, what software to download, what brushes to install, this video should have an answer to most of your questions, so let's get started. Woo!
Okay, let's see. This is an intro, tablet, software, setup, installing the tablet, brushstrokes, file size. This is not what I'm looking for. Essential tools, custom brushes, and free brushes. Okay. How do I look this up? Like, what I want to look for is like, well, not the difference between digital and traditional, but how do I describe this? Not the difference. What do we look up? How to use all arm drawing digital? Maybe. Why so I'll get used to drawing tablet. I'll take a look at this. User arm for better line art. Okay. Tools and practice. Digital art tips. We can work with that. Line art tutorial. How to draw basic anatomy. Why a second line? How not to suck a line art. I've seen this video quite a few times. Suggested and I didn't watch it. Okay.
Learning to use one of these things can be pretty difficult. They are kind of unintuitive and don't really make sense to your brain when you first start using them. And as someone who normally uses a screen tablet, getting used to one of these can still be a bit disorienting. So, for example, getting a straight line here, I can't really tell what I'm doing. And while I can kind of get it down, when you're starting to use one of these, it can be really, really confusing. And I know that firsthand. For example, this is the first drawing tablet I started drawing on digitally, and this thing can be really confusing to use because you can see how small it is. It is, I think, the cheapest one you could get at the time. I wouldn't have been able to afford something like this, a Huion HS611. Back when I started drawing, I had to just get the cheapest one that there was. By the way, if you're looking to buy a drawing tablet and you're interested in this one, you can check out my review in the description below. But in this video, I want to show you that it really doesn't matter which tablet you get. You can get used to it, and I know it can be rough. And the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of people have asked me questions about this and have said it's a really difficult process and they just can't seem to get their head around it. So I'm going to show you some of the things I did to start getting used to using a arts tablet, and I'm sure in no time you'll get to a point where using one of these just becomes second nature. So first of all, don't give your brain too much to process at once. So for example, if you're trying to draw and learning to use one of these at the same time, that is going to be tricky for you because there's so many things that your brain is trying to process there, and you're trying to figure out how this piece of hardware works while also trying to do the quite difficult act of drawing. And I can't even draw a circle here because this thing is in a weird position and it's confusing my brain and I don't really know what I'm doing or where my pen is in space. So what I did when I was really struggling with this is, instead of focusing on drawing, which I did also do, I simply focused on using this thing as a cursor for my computer, and that can really help with doing more basic tasks. So just like flipping through your files and understanding where your pen is in space on the screen, and just learning how to click and double tap and move around things and drag it around. And it's going to be easier for you to know where your pen is and to jump to certain places and understand where that correlates with the screen, because that's really the hurdle to get over when you're using one of these, is drawing on something that isn't the screen, that is representing the screen. So to just do basic tasks is going to help you out and do something easier, so it's not stressing you out. Just do one at a time, and I think simply using it as your computer cursor for a while is going to make it a lot easier to learn how to use one of these things. There's also another tip that relates to that pretty directly, with just getting comfortable with the function of one of these, which is a lot more fun than simply just moving around your computer. And that is this right here, Osu. So Osu, you probably already know, it's a rhythm game that focuses on using a mouse, or in most cases a tablet like this. Now in my opinion, this is a pretty fun way to just get a hang of what means what and where your screen is. And I haven't played this game in years, and I certainly haven't played it on this computer, so I have no idea what any of this stuff is, but it's a very simple game and it's just going to get the hang of what you're probably really struggling with. So I guess this is just like a tutorial, but you can see I have to move the cursor around and get my cursor into the right place in the right time and click on the right thing. So if I just go on a random song, and I'm going to very quickly just look at this because I'm not going to have any audio or anything, but I'll just show you the basics of how this works. So, okay. My sensitivity would normally be higher than this. And again, I have no audio context for what's going on here, but you can see my point. This is a good way to just get a hang of where your cursor is on the screen, and it's a fun way to get used to what you're looking at here. And it's way too hard to move across the screen when your sensitivity isn't very high, so maybe turn the sensitivity up if you do decide to do this. Another way to improve your hand-eye coordination is to just start tracing. So this is my art, but I think it's fine to trace other people's art as long as you aren't re-uploading it and claiming it as your own. As just practice here, this is just fine. And now I probably should be using my arm more than my wrist here, but again, I've got a very awkward setup going on, so I can't really do that. But again, this is just getting yourself to do what you need to learn and learn how to orient your cursor on the screen, but in a way that isn't going to overload your brain and make it extremely stressful. So instead of focusing on drawing at the same time as focusing on learning how to control the tablet, you're just focusing on getting some lines down, just to make it more basic for yourself so you can start to understand this. And it took me a good couple of weeks of doing really terrible tracing of other people's art that I don't think I have saved anywhere because I really hated the way that it turned out, and it wasn't, my original art anyway. But it was a good way to finally get myself kind of used to one of these. And at that point, I really didn't think I'd ever get used to using a tablet because it was so confusing to me, and I'd only been drawing for about a month on a little notepad. It was my first time drawing digitally, and like I showed you before, I was using that tiny little, really awkward to use tablet that I wouldn't recommend if you can afford anything better. So it was really about the most awkward experience you could give yourself. But after a couple of weeks of doing stuff like this, I did finally get myself in a position where I was getting used to it. And so it may take time and it may be very awkward, but you can get there if you keep trying. And then the next step after tracing, I think, would just be an exercise you should probably be doing regardless of getting used to new hardware or not, and that's just lines and circles. And so, like I said, I'm in an awkward position here. I am going to struggle to do this.
So, okay, let me write that down actually. Lines and circles. Tracing art.
But it's a good way to just get your brain to understand what you're doing and what makes a circle. You won't be able to draw anything until you can figure this out, and so even here I'm struggling to get a decent looking circle. Now for me, I've made this especially awkward by having this off to the side and at an angle compared to my screen, so it's really confusing for me. But if you're not trying to record yourself, then what you can do is put the tablets directly in front of the screen you're trying to draw on, and this will give your brain less work to do when it comes to trying to get the cursor in the right place. It will make your life a lot easier, and so having the tablet line up with the screen may help you a lot in just getting adjusted to one of these and getting used to it. So those are my tips and what I personally did to get used to one of these things. And like I said, it was very, very difficult, and it took me weeks even to get used to one because I was using one that was so small and so awkward. And so even if it does also take you a few weeks to get used to one of these, you still can do it. It's just going to take time, and it is complicated, but you'll figure it out eventually. You can get used to it as long as you don't try and overload your brain. Just kind of take things one step at a time and slowly figure it out piece by piece and let your brain adjust to what you're doing. I also want to make it very clear that if you've bought a drawing tablet and you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling like it's really difficult to use, then try not to worry about it too much and understand that the tablet isn't going to make you a better or worse artist. A good artist is going to be able to draw well on absolutely any piece of hardware, and it doesn't matter if it's expensive or if it's cheap or if it's awkward to use or not. You can adjust to it, and you're either going to be able to draw well with it or you're not, and the hardware isn't going to make or break that. I am struggling to draw on this because I'm so used to using a screen tablet, but when I was used to one of these, switching over to a screen tablet I found really difficult and really awkward, and there are very clear disadvantages to having a screen tablet. It, in my experience, hurts your hands more, and having your hand in the way of what you're trying to draw can be really awkward and difficult to get used to. So regardless of what you're using now, it's kind of a grass is always greener on the other side situation. What you're using right now isn't necessarily worse than the hardware you may be thinking that would make you a better artist. It's really not that simple, and you can adjust to what you're using. Like I said, I used the cheapest stuff that was available, so whether you have that or even if you have something better, it doesn't matter. You can get used to it, and you will be able to learn and improve your art on that hardware. And then maybe if you do want to get something nicer in the future, you will be able to, more so justify that or be able to afford that as you kind of move forward in your life, hopefully. And these things just take time, but use what you have to the best of your advantage, and understand that there is nothing wrong with the hardware that you currently have. You can use it to do great things, and really nothing is holding you back apart from just muscle memory and getting used to it and slowly adjusting to one of these things. And like I said, it takes time, but you'll get there, and so good luck with that. If you want to improve your art for free, you can join the Learning to Draw Discord server, and that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully this was helpful. Leave any other tips you have in the comments for helping people learn how to use a screen tablet. It can be awkward, and I know a lot of people have mentioned that to me, and I know I've experienced that as well, but don't worry, you can get used to it with enough effort. So thank you for watching this.
The reason why you think your line work sucks is because you're not using your arm properly and your lines are the same weight or thickness. So we're going to cover both of those issues in this video, and we're going to start with your arm before we move on to your weight. Line weight, that is. I'm not making a commentary on your diet. I'm sure you're beautiful. Let's move on, shall we? When we first start to draw, we tend to hold and use our pencil the same way we write, like this. We use our wrist and that's it. But the wrist is so limiting because it has a small range of motion. It's great for the little details in our drawings, but it's difficult to get those big swooping lines that we want, and that's where the elbow comes in. If we bring our elbow into the mix, we have a much wider arc to work with, which means you can now draw lines like this. See how that's more smooth and fluid? If you rest your elbow on your chair or desk, then you have this pivot point which you can move back and forward. A useful exercise is to get a blank piece of paper and try practicing parallel lines, keeping your wrist still and just using your elbow to move. It's going to feel weird as hell at first, but you'll start to get used to it. The elbow is pretty good, especially when you want to draw long straight lines, but to get the most out of our arm, we're going to want to introduce the shoulder. It has the greatest range of motion in your entire arm. You know those perfect circle videos? Most of those tend to use their shoulders because our shoulders can make big circular movements, which is great for drawing circles and ellipses. Likewise with the elbow exercise, loosen up your shoulder and draw lots of circles and ellipses. Now, I know what you're thinking. Your lines look even worse than they did before, but that's because this is a new thing. If you practice these movements a lot, then you'll start to gain more control over your pencil and make more confident lines. Unfortunately, that's just going to take time and practice. Do this for 10 to 15 minutes before you start your drawings, and you'll notice you'll make better marks on the page by utilizing all 3 points of your arm. And then you'll start doing it automatically without thinking. Another thing that I tend to do without thinking is not subscribe to YouTube channels, unless someone asks me to do it, otherwise I'll forget. So before you forget, hit that subscribe button, and now let's talk about your weight. The best way to explain this is to show you. If you look at this drawing, you might not notice that anything is wrong with it, but you'll really notice a difference when I apply weights to it. It just looks like it has more depth and form, and is generally more interesting to look at. But why? Well, line weight serves a few purposes. Firstly, it makes the drawing pop, which makes it interesting, but it also provides information like perspective, weight, and light. If one object is in front of the other, then the lines that indicate that should be a little thicker because that helps show us that one form is overlapping the other. If you want to show an object weight, then thicken up the lines that are being affected by gravity, like this. And if you want to help show where a light source is hitting a subject, then make those lines thinner, almost translucent. So that's why you'd want to use line weight, but what does that look like in practice? Well, if you're new to this concept, then draw the way you would normally draw and don't think about line weight at all until you're finished. If you're working traditionally, then stick with pencil so that you can erase some lines if you need to. Let's apply weights to this drawing here. If you haven't noticed it already, you'll really see the difference line weight can have at the end. Most of the lines here are the same weight or thickness, but let's apply some of those lines in the area that overlap one another. Already we're starting to see some of the forms and shapes pop, and the drawing has more depth to it, but we can go further. I want to show that the dress is heavy and also the vines have a bit of weight to them too. We can do this by making the lines on the bottom thicker. There's not much evidence going on here, but there is a great article that describes this really well that I'll link in the description. We've spoken about thick lines non-stop, but what about thin ones? I've applied some thin lines on the face, neck, and torso to show this. This adds even more depth, and we can also use them for texture as well. So what if we were to add a background? This might take a while, so hold on while there we go. That took ages. Okay, so I think this looks okay, but I think the background is smothering her a little bit. She's not really popping much. So how can we solve that with lines? Well, we can do something like this. By increasing the thickness of the contour lines, it can help us stand out from the background. One more thing I didn't mention was light. For the most part, light is achieved by using values, but we can simulate light by using lines as well. By making some of those contour lines thinner, we're implying that the light source is hitting that side of the drawing, like this. It's subtle, but some of the lines on her left side are now thinner because that's where the light is coming from. As with everything to do with art, this is going to take some time and some experimentation. You may prefer adding more thicker lines or maybe fewer, and that's kind of up to you. It's up to you where you place them because you're expressing an opinion, your opinion. And that's what art creation is all about. The way you use lines will depend on the drawing that you do and what you feel like doing. So experiment with various line weights and train your arm to draw them with smooth fluidity. It's one of the most fun parts of the drawing, and I hope this helps put line work into perspective a little bit. If you have any concerns, let me know in the comments, check out the links in the description, and as always, have fun drawing.
Instead of shading with black on a lower opacity, use a multiply or linear burn layer instead. Make sure to use references when you're drawing. No one can remember what everything looks like off the top of their head. When painting, make sure your midtone is more saturated than your shadow tone. This especially helps when trying to make skin feel more vibrant and alive. Make sure to name your layers, especially if you have a lot of them. Learn basic perspective. This will really help out if you want to draw backgrounds. If you're using Photoshop, hold Shift to draw a perfectly straight line. Learn color theory. When drawing a human, simplify their anatomy into basic shapes. This will make it much easier to draw. If you don't know what colors to pick when coloring a character, use a pre-made color palette. You can find heaps of these online. When drawing line art, don't be afraid to draw over your already existing lines. Just make sure to erase the parts you don't want after. Make sure to flip your canvas every so often. This will help you spot mistakes you might not have noticed otherwise. If your line art looks too boring, try adding some line weight. When choosing colors for a character design, make sure they aren't oversaturated. A lot of beginners tend to do this. When drawing a face, make sure to draw a cross over the middle. This will indicate where the eyes will sit and where the middle of the face is. Learn how expressions work. Don't be afraid to make your shadows darker. The eyes will sit and where the middle of the face is. Learn how expressions work. Don't be afraid to make your shadows darker. These shadows right here are definitely way too light. When you're sketching, make sure to zoom out so you can see what the whole piece is going to look like. When you're drawing line art, make sure to zoom in. This will help you get much more precise lines. If you're drawing with a mouse, don't. Use a tablet. You don't need an expensive drawing tablet to make good art. As long as it works, then it's fine. If your lines tend to be wobbly, turn on the smoothing option. As you probably expect, this will make them look smoother. Whenever you draw eyes, don't forget to add a little white highlight. It really brings them to life. If you want a more dynamic looking piece, add a secondary light source. When adding another light source to your drawing, I recommend using a screen, color dodge, or lighten layer. Make sure to avoid tangents when doing line art. These are tangents. If you want to design something, like a character, make a mood board. This will help for inspiration, and it can be used as reference. If you don't want to draw the other eye, hide it. Study anatomy, please. This will help so much. If your character doesn't look like it fits in the background, add a multiply layer on top with the color of the background. Make sure the size of your line art is at least somewhat consistent. Make sure you draw the anatomy of a character before you draw their clothes, so that their proportions will be correct. Make sure to constantly be saving your artwork, especially if you're using a program like Photoshop. If that program crashes and you haven't saved, then you'll lose all of your progress. Don't trace other people's art. This won't help you improve, and generally looks bad anyway. If you want a more dynamic looking pose, use foreshortening. Don't make your line art too thick. It tends to look away. If you want a more dynamic looking pose, use foreshortening. Don't make your line art too thick. It tends to look better when it's thinner. If you don't want to draw the hands, which is understandable, they're very hard to draw, put them in your character's pockets, or behind their back, or just hide them in general. If your character is outside, the shadows should usually be tinted blue. If you're drawing something that is symmetrical, like a face for example, use the symmetry tool. That's what it's there for. Make sure you always draw on a canvas at least 1080 by 720 pixels wide, otherwise your artwork is going to look very pixelated. When exporting your piece, make sure to export as a JPEG or PNG for the best quality. When drawing your shadows, use a clipping mask. This will make it so you can't draw outside the lines. When sketching, try to avoid making chicken scratches, and instead use longer, more confident strokes. To make a surface look curved, use an airbrush to draw the shadow.
Hi, bro.
Hi friends, this is Lulu Sketches. Today's video is a digital line art tutorial. So today I'm going to go over my 7 tips for making clean, smooth line art. These tips apply regardless of what tablet you're using or what brushes you're using. Today I am using a Wacom Cintiq 22 HD. I made a video with all my digital art supplies that I've ever used, and that video has links to all my Photoshop brushes, so I will link that video down below. Before I get started, if you could give this video a thumbs up, that would help me out a lot. Okay, here are my 7 tips for clean line art. Number 1, make sure your tablet is installed correctly and that you're using the correct driver. This may seem like an obvious one, but it can cause a lot of problems. You can find the right driver for your tablet and computer online. If your tablet isn't installed correctly, the pressure sensitivity of your stylus could be off, which can result in pin pressure issues like wobbly lines or no tapering on your lines. Number 2, work at a high resolution. I always work at 300 dpi or higher. For characters, my canvases are usually around 8 by 10 inches. If I'm doing backgrounds, they're going to be at least 11 by 14 inches at 300 dpi. Your line art will end up looking pixelated instead of smooth. Number 3, choose a brush based on what you want your line art to look like. When I want a gritty line art that resembles pencil, I like to use the Stumpy pencil brush. Here's an example of a drawing where I use the Stumpy pencil brush for my line art. It gives my line art a little texture, which I like. If you're using a brush like this and you want your line to be even grittier, you can just turn down the flow on your brush settings. If you want your line art to look super smooth and a really consistent line weight like you'd see in anime or manga, you can just use one of Photoshop's default hard brushes. For this, I have the flow and opacity at 100%, and I personally would recommend in your brush settings toolbar to have shape dynamics checked and also smoothing checked. That will give you that really clean, smooth line. Number 4, 4, zoom in a lot. This is super important if you want your line art to look clean. Even if your line art looks sketchy when you're zoomed in, when you zoom out, it looks a whole lot cleaner. For this drawing I'm showing you here, I'm going for a smooth, kind of sharp line art that's dynamic. I'm using Shiyun's inking brush. This is the brush I use for the line art of all of my OOTG drawings, my outfit of the day drawings. You can see all those drawings on my Instagram, Lulu Sketches. With this brush, the line weight varies a lot. It's very dynamic, so you can make very thick brush strokes or very thin brush strokes with the same brush. I personally go into the brush settings and turn off texture. Number 5, use your whole arm instead of just your wrist when you're drawing. This can apply whether you're drawing digitally or traditionally. It's also important for the health of your drawing hand to give your
Hold on. Okay, this is important.
whether you're drawing digitally or traditionally. It's also important for the health of your drawing hand to give your wrist a break from time to time. So instead of just drawing from the wrist like this, try holding your stylus gently in your hand and then rotating your whole elbow to make quick, deliberate strokes. This is a great way to make long, clean strokes instead of a bunch of little sketchy strokes on your line art. For these longer, quick strokes, you'll see that I'm a little less zoomed in than I was before. So whether you're using a Cintiq, which is sitting up on your desk like this, or a tablet, which is laying on your desk, when you're drawing from the elbow, rest your elbow on the desk to make those long, deliberate strokes. Sometimes when I'm working on my Cintiq at work, I forget to rest my elbow on my desk, and then I'm working from my shoulder, and then I don't realize it till later when my shoulder really hurts. So for me, the best way to not pain my wrist or my shoulder is to work from the elbow. But you kind of just gotta try out different methods and see what works for you. Number 6, Command Z is your friend. If you're doing these quick long...
So I think what I should get here is the fact that I can work from, or I should work from the elbow. Now with the setup I have, I don't think it's possible, because right now, like the tablet is so close to me, and it's almost like at the edge of the desk that I have no space for my elbow to rest on. Alhamdulillah. Okay.
Long strokes from the elbow, sometimes your aim isn't going to be great. Since you're drawing digitally, you can be picky about what line you end up with. I keep my hand on Command Z when I'm drawing my line art. So this is better than just drawing a line and then trying to fix it by erasing pieces off. It's never gonna look as smooth and clean. The line is gonna look a lot smoother if you get it right with one stroke. So just keep undoing and trying to get that line just right. Number 7, rotate your canvas. Certain angles are just gonna be hard to draw line art for, especially if you're trying to work from your elbow, but you're trying to... So when I'm drawing traditionally, I'll just spin the paper around to get a line correct. Digitally, you can do the same thing. I rotate my canvas with the R key in Photoshop. Then you can draw your line art at any angle that is easiest for you. And to straighten your canvas back out, hit Escape. If you want to get better at line art. And those are my 7 tips. There's a hidden 8th tip, and that's to practice, but you should know that by now. Just draw
Hi guys, my name is Marcel, and today you've been drawing like a stud. That's right, you're probably here because you already drew something, and then you realize that your line art skills are about as useful as the bottom half of a condom. But don't worry, because today I'm teaching you how I'm making my line art as crisp as possible. Actually, for today, I wanted to make a video about character design as another entry for my manga tutorial playlist, but then I realized that it's been a while since I've uploaded a video that has something to do with the last couple of weeks with writing books and painting PCs, but now I'm finally back, so expect me in lines.
Have to hold your pencil. Learn how to draw. You know what? I think I'm gonna change the setup of my desk right now. Okay. Oh, okay. How to set up digital digital drawing tablet. Where's it? Drawing tablet. No, not use. Set up. The switch. Okay, that could be interesting. Da, 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 da.
Hi guys, my name's Marcel, and you did click this video because you're a traditional artist and you're struggling. You tried every trick under the sun. And did it work? No. And did it work? No. But then you realized we are not cavemen. We have technology. That's right, in today's video I'll show you how to get into digital art if you've never touched a tablet before. And it's my goal that after watching this video you will get an artwork on screen that looks like this. And before you mention it, I know that there are many different styles of digital art. I also like to paint portraits and landscapes or concept art on my tablet. But I think starting with something simpler just to get your feet wet and learn all of these basic tools first would be a bit easier for start. That's always how you learn a new medium. You try to start out by making something simple without any fancy effects in order to understand how all of these tools work and how to use them. And then you can try getting a bit more advanced. Okay, this is how we're doing it. First I'll be giving you a quick overview on your art supplies, i.e. tablet and drawing app. And after that I will show you the basics, how I'm approaching digital art from the very beginning and how you could draw your first digital art piece. Then there will be a quick guide to shortcuts, and at the end there will be a draw along part where you and I will be making this artwork together. I've never made a tutorial purely on digital art before on this channel, so if you guys support this one enough, then I'll be sure to make more content like this in the future. Sounds good? Then let's switch over to digital art. Like I said.
Please don't use tablet. Just go ahead and use it.
Now, there are mainly three kinds of tablets people like to use. There's mobile tablets, like the iPad, obviously. Then there are pen display monitors. And last but not least, there are tablets without a screen at all. For this tutorial, it really doesn't matter which one you have, by the way. I personally prefer display monitor tablets because I like to work on my PC and I prefer working with multiple screens at once. But a lot of beginners especially also tend to use mobile tablets, like an iPad, because you don't require a computer to use it. And also, working with gestures is a very simple way to get into digital art. If you want to have some recommendations of what tablets exactly I personally use, I did list them all on my supply list on my website, in case you're still unsure about which one to get. So it doesn't really matter which kind of tablet you have, and same goes for your app, by the way. It doesn't make much of a difference which exact app you're using for starters, just as long as your drawing app supports creating multiple layers. I've actually made a video a long time ago where I compare different drawing apps, and in this video I already told you that Clip Studio Paint is my absolute favorite drawing app to work with, and that's why Clip Studio's actually partnered up with me to sponsor today's video. Clip Studio is an app that I'm using for years now, and I'm using it not only for artworks, but I'm also using it for animation. I've literally animated a whole commercial using this very software. There's a budget version in case you don't want to spend a lot of money, at least on PC, it's a one-time purchase, so you don't have to have a subscription. There's a free store integrated with a lot of free stuff, like brushes, effects, and even 3D models that can help you out with perspective, and well, I could sit here all day listing off the reasons why you should give this app a try. If you want to try out Clip Studio, there's a 3-month trial version which has all of the features that Clip Studio usually has. So why not give it a shot? It's an honest recommendation from me, and a link to the software is obviously down in the info box. Okay then, if you're ready, I'm going to now show you the basics and how I'm approaching some very simple digital art. Alright, I'll give you an overview of all the basic tools and functions and explain to you how I'm using them. Don't worry if you're not using Clip Studio, these tools are almost all very similar looking in most drawing apps and softwares. For starters, let's create a new project. You can do that over here. Clip Studio's overview is incredibly simple, so everything you'll have to enter here is how wide and how long your artwork will be and what resolution you want. I personally would not use anything below 2000 x 2000 pixels, and the resolution should be in the 3 digits. I like to enter 300 here, because your resolution, or dots per inch, determine how pixelated your artwork is going to be later on. So yeah, with 300 you should be completely fine, so let's confirm and create our canvas. Okay, before we start, let's have a quick check on your workspace. In case you're missing something, you can always get the exact same workspace that I have by selecting Windows, Workspace, and then reset it that way. And now your app should look exactly the way mine does. Now you'll obviously need your tools, you have your toolbar for that. There are also some properties for your tools in case you want to change the size or the shape of your brush, but this could look slightly different depending on the app or workspace you're using. Then you'll need a way to pick your color. This can be a color wheel, a color pool, etc. And last but not least, obviously your layers. You won't need any more than that for starters. Now in case you've never drawn digital art before, an artwork is basically always drawn on several layers. Just try imagining them like transparent slides that lie on top of each other. You usually have one layer for every step. So you have your sketch layer, then you have your coloration layer, your line art layer, and so on and so forth. The big advantage here is that if you want to change something about your line art, for example, you could easily toggle off all the other layers and then change whatever you dislike about your art. Alright then, let's give it a go. In case you are getting this icon, you need to create a new layer, by the way. There are several types of layers, but let's just stick to the regular all raster layer here. I would recommend always naming or color coding your layers because there will be a lot of them, so this can get quite messy. I personally, for example, always like to color code my sketch layers blue. And now that we have our sketch layer, let's sketch on it. You can take whatever kind of pen your app or software has. Clip Studio has pencils, traditional brushes, and liners when it comes to drawing. There are a lot of things to choose from. It's pretty fun to try out all the different pens at your disposal. Also, when you're picking a pen that you like, you can customize it too, like changing the size of the brush, etc. There are a lot of properties to these, but I guess the only one that matters for now is obviously the size. And now I would like to encourage you to just try out and draw a bit. And also, in case you want to erase something, your eraser works the very same way as well. Oh, and the color wheel I think is kind of self-explanatory. Doesn't matter if you prefer a wheel or a pool or whatever, what's important is that you have a place to pick your colors from. Okay, these were like the absolute bare basics you need in order to draw. Like I said, I would suggest you just draw a bit to get the hang out of it and try some brushes that you think look cool. If you want to rotate or zoom into your canvas, there's a whole menu for that on the top right corner. There's a quicker way of doing that, but I'll talk about shortcuts later. If you have a tablet that supports touch, you could just use your fingers for that. That's also pretty cool, but that doesn't work on every tablet. Besides these, there are also some other tools that make your life a bit less of a living hell, like the Liquify tool, which lets you transform your artwork in case you messed up some proportions, or obviously the Select tool, which you could use to move or transform parts of your art. But when sketching, I really only like to use the bare basics myself, because it really just shows that I'm a traditional artist through and through. But I would suggest you practice handling these very basic tools at first. Try drawing on your tablet without any fancy effects at first, in order to get some muscle memory. It's a weird feeling trying to draw digitally for the first time, especially drawing on a tablet without a screen is pretty difficult for starters. So this might actually take a couple of hours to get used to. For practicing, I would recommend drawing the usual basic shapes, just so that later on, your lines don't look like you're intoxicated while holding your tablet. Like I said, depending on how quick of a learner you are, this could take hours, but if you still struggle here, I would not recommend attempting your magnum opus while you still need to get a grasp of the basics. So try having fun with it, try some brushes you like, use the eraser a couple of times, zoom in, zoom out, rotate your canvas, get married, have kids, go on a holiday, like this video, subscribe to my channel. No, for real, no, why didn't you like this video yet? Also, you should definitely save your artworks from time to time, you can do so right here. Now at this point, I should enlighten you about Control-Z. You might already know about Control-Z, but with this feature, you can basically rewind every action that you've made. You accidentally erased something? Control-Z. You misclicked and now your whole canvas is green? Control-Z. As always, there's also an undo button for that in case you hate using keyboards. And also with most touch tablets, this should be a simple double tap. Honestly, I don't really rewind anything while sketching because that way I keep all of my drawings, even the failed ones. I think that's an absolute waste to just undo everything out of existence. So you don't really need that feature when it comes to sketching, but you might need it in this next step. Okay then, enough about sketching, I'll show you how to proceed when I'm finishing my artwork. Next up, right after finishing the sketching layer, comes the line art layer. You know, basically the layer where our sketch gets an actual outline. But before we do that, we need to reduce the opacity of our sketch so we don't get confused later on. Reducing the opacity is pretty easy. Basically, every software has a toggle right over here where you can just reduce the opacity of your layer. And now as for the line art, we now need a separate layer. For simplicity's sake, adding a regular layer does a trick, but for line arts, I usually always like to use vector layers. And that's because with vector layers, you're actually able to edit these line arts after the fact. But not every app has vector layers, so let's stick to a regular raster layer for now. Now, I would recommend using a proper pen for line art. Personally, I prefer the G pen because it reacts to pen pressure. And now everything that you would need to do is to trace your sketch. And pro tip, if your line art is too wobbly, you can always increase the stabilization of your pen in the property menu. This works like a charm, but it also makes your pen lag behind a bit, so don't increase it all too much. Now, you might be able to tell already, but the undo feature really comes in handy here. Because, yeah,
stabilization is like sensitivity or smoothing. Is it smoothing? I think it's smoothing. Oh. I see what's going on. So smoothing helps. Smoothing helps really well. Okay, okay. But the lag though. This is interesting. Smoothing. Wow. Okay, hold on. Tracing art. Smoothing. So you can go without smoothing here. And then when you're trying to do line art, you can use smoothing. What the f? Dude, my circles look perfect. Look at the circle, though.
Line art can be kind of tricky. Usually you always need a couple of attempts to get it to look as clean as you want it to. And that's okay, that's what Control-Z is there for after all. Alright then, and once we're finished, we don't need our sketch layer anymore, so let's hide it. Pretty much any drawing app has an eyeball right besides the layer where you can just hide the layer with. And now just look at that, halfway done already. Now next up would be the coloring part. As you can see, you usually start out by just painting the flat colors first without any shadows or highlights. Just the base is all. Okay then, same procedure, adding a new layer and just name it color. Or color, in case you're annoying. The most important part is to have this
I don't care about any of that. Okay, wow. This is interesting. This is very interesting. Today was very educational. Like, I feel like if we focus on these three things, maybe I can draw the tracing part because, I don't know. Maybe we'll do some tracing. You know what? Maybe we'll trace right now. But I feel like let's draw some circles. Some lines first. Before I do that, actually, let me clean my desk. Because I feel like it needs cleaning. I have a lot of like bullshit in here. This smells really good. This used to be I used to call it the smell obelisk. but it's not an obelisk anymore. I stepped on it. I think my sister stepped on it. And it shattered. Okay. So this is money. There's a lot of things that I don't need on my desk. You know what? Let's do some cleaning. This is part of drawing. This is good. Let's get this away. Let's get this away. All right. Let's move these. I probably don't need this. Neither do I need this. This is money. I'm going to drop this here. Come on. Just go in. There we go. What else? What else do we need to throw? I'm just clearing up some space just to move the computer back. Just so I can have like more space like in front where I can rest my hand. I got this. This is very beautiful. I love it. We can empty money in here. Empty all of that in there. We don't need these two. Here we go. Let's rest this one in here. This is my bottle. This is not like this is the bottle. Put it there. And this is a spray. All right. I think we have the clock. The clock, we can rest the clock here. And I think we're good. I think we're good. These are like the pods. This is a button that fell from... Oh no. This is here. And this is the rest for the pen. And I think we're good. I think if we put the pods here, the small obelisk, got a spinner. Here we go. Let's turn the music on. All right, this is it. I feel like this is it. Okay, one other thing that I'm gonna look up is whether I need to. Okay, look how wide the shot got. Okay, is whether I need to rest the tablet like straight on the table or the desk, or do I need to lift it up a little bit and sort of like draw like this? You know what I mean? That's something I need to look up. Or maybe even if I move this near, because I use my left hand and I have like the wall next to me in here. So maybe I'm gonna have to need to move, well, not the whole computer, but just like only the tablet. That could be fun. I feel like I can't, like my elbow is still not on the desk yet. So if I move even further, yeah, maybe that works. This feels weird, but also maybe I'll get used to it. And if I set it like this, then I can also draw. Let's see. Dude, okay, first of all, using smoothing is very, like, interesting to me. Because look at the circle that I draw without smoothing, with zero smoothing. Like, this is alright. This is alright. Now look at the circle I draw with smoothing. No hard edges, no everything. Alright, more smoothing. See what I'm talking about? Okay, maybe a lot of smoothing can be bad. So maybe in the 30s range. That gives me like a circle that I feel good about. That's very fun. That's also the way I see it in Procreate. Procreate users use a lot of smoothing, I feel like. Alright, so that's one. Actually, that's two. One was moving the tablet down. Two, using smoothing. Three, I feel like, what is this, bro? Oh my god. That's fine, I'll clean it later. Three is changing the brush I'm using. Okay, this needs to change. So something like this I feel like is good. Okay, how long have I been streaming? Okay, so we changed that. Maybe we can even change the line weight, give it like 5. Hmm, 5, maybe like an 8. Yeah, I think an 8 I can control it. Like I can make it really thin or really dark. Okay. So move the tablet down. Done. Use smoothing. Done. Change brush and line weight. Done. Okay. Now, what else do we need to do? Practice lines and circles. I'm gonna reduce the opacity on this one, like really low, maybe to a point where I can still read them, and then I'm gonna draw on another layer. Alright, so use, I don't need to change the position of the whole, use the whole arm, use the whole arm. You have the arm, use the whole arm. Okay, use the whole arm. Okay, maybe if I move my body, because this is weird, like, I want to be able to use this comfortably. Okay? So it's either I use my whole arm, or I use it from the ankle, no, not from the ankle, from the elbow. But my drawing is gonna be a little bit weird because I'm restricted by my space in here. Or I draw from the wrist, which is a no go. So let's keep it with lines. Let's keep lines. Alright, I'm gonna just practice drawing lines. Just gonna keep practicing for the rest of the stream until I hit like an hour. Because I've done my research and I feel like I got my answer. Okay. I feel like this is a good workout for my hand. I feel like I'm gonna have like a more muscled up left hand than my right hand. Especially the triceps. I legit feel it getting worked out right now. Okay. Maybe I should try... Yeah, see, okay. So, not... When I'm trying to use, like... to draw, like, straight lines, vertical lines like this, using the elbow... Yeah, not the elbow, no, using the whole arm from the shoulder is best. If I'm trying to draw a straight line, a vertical straight line from the elbow, that sort of like doesn't work because my movement is restricted. What's this good, however, is curved lines like this. And so is the work from the shoulder. Like this is really good as well. Curved lines are very interesting from the shoulder. Dude, smoothing is such a blessing, honestly. Like I've struggled so much with smoothing. Without smoothing, that is. So same thing. Well, I guess I can rest my elbow with this one. It's just that my drawing is limited to this part, to this area. Oh shit. With the wrist, my drawing is limited to like maybe like this area. This is like the straightest line I can draw. Okay. And these are not even that straight. With my elbow, I can draw like this. Like this is like this, right? It starts to get curved in here. With my shoulder, I can do it like this. I can go like this. So this is interesting. Yeah. So I feel like it's not up to me, or it's not if it like if I like it, then I'll go with it. No, it's literally when it gets restrictive, then you have to move to the other you know, technique, which is either using the whole arm, the elbow, or the wrist. For the wrist, I can see like why people could use the wrist, because when you're trying to fill in some detail on something very small that you want to focus on, then sure, you can use the wrist. You can use the elbow. You can use any part really. Okay. It's not really one of my streams if I don't draw a hand. So we'll draw a hand with our technique. Dude, just asking for a hand. Kappu. Kappu katto. Alright, alright, alright. Let us hide this, deselect another layer, copy, boom, and boom. Okay, let's go. So we're using the whole arm. Alright. Alright. Observe, observe. First of all, observe. You have this, and then you have this, and then you have this, okay? Now, feel like we're getting this one here, and then from here, nope. Here we go. That's one. And then we have the rest of the thingies. The thingies, we can do this. And then it goes like, nope, nope, don't do that. And here. Alright, now I'm using my wrist. Because I'm trying to focus on, and these are like small strokes. So it's okay. Sweet. Dude, this is straight. This is amazing. Okay. Dude, this is an 8, and it's still thick. So okay, we'll drop it down to a 5 then. All right, something like that. And yeah, okay. This is very interesting. I feel like I'm going towards the right in the right direction here. And yeah, we'll see. We'll keep practicing. I'll keep trying to use my whole arm, and we'll see where we can go. All right. Peace.